Done. Yes, Eva, if you've been listening to Towel Stream, you knew the consciousness of guilt was coming. It was just a matter of time, and by God, did we see it. I don't know why it's because I'm running a lot of things. All right, so let's start the recap. Let me figure out the exact cue. It's going to be 3:46:45. All right, get in here, Towel friends. You know it's your favorite part of the day. If you love the recap, get your comments in, get your questions. I can't promise I'll see them all, but here we go. All right, Towel friends, hello. My name is Grant Smith Ellis. Day 28 of the John O'Keefe and Karen Reed retrial certainly ended and started with another bang. Oh, my word, ladies and gentlemen. Out of nowhere, Hank Brennan dropped the unexpected consciousness of guilt evidence entirely out of the blue, involving Brian Lucky Loughran and Aidan Kearney. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start with those moments. Then we are going to watch the footage of Karen Reed leaving court, basically shell-shocked.
Ladies, the dumpsters.
Oh, hold on, ladies and gentlemen.
That wasn't.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to watch the footage of Brian Lucky Loughran testifying. We are going to watch the moments that Karen Reed walked out of court. We are going to go through the full day. Let me just show you what was the epitome of the apex of Hank Brennan's tactical legal genius. He dropped out of nowhere while Brian Lucky Loughran was on cross information proving that Aidan Kearney had been targeting Lucky on the very same day, June 5th, 2023, that Lucky met with Karen Reed defense investigators. Now, you're also going to see clips after Brian Lucky Loughran's short testimony here, and we will watch the cross in full later, of, ladies and gentlemen, Aidan Kearney speaking directly to Lucky Loughran on video via live stream in 2023. So let's listen. Take it away, Lucky. And Hank.
A question about the dumpsters.
And he said that wasn't subject to a lot of attention, was it?
Correct.
Right. But this case was.
The case itself, yes.
The people involved in this case were subject to a lot of attention.
Correct.
And you spoke to the defense investigator after this case as far as attention is concerned. You remember speaking to the investigator on June 5th, 2023?
Yes.
And do you know, coincidentally, that is the day that the blogger put out the articles on you, accusing you of not doing the right thing? Sure. May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you a document. Let's take a look at that document. What day is that document dated?
June 5th, 2023.
Without reading it, that document talks about you.
Correct.
And your friends and people in the community talked to you about this article, didn't they?
Not specifically this article, but they were sending me stuff that were being printed about me, yes.
Why don't you take a little look at what's said and you can tell us whether that's the same type of information that was being conveyed to you through intermediaries.
Can you ask that question again, please?
Yes, sir. Was this some of the kind of attention that you were receiving on June 5th after you spoke to the defense investigator?
Yes.
Can I come side by?
Okay, folks, do you understand what's happening here? This is just we're at an absolutely huge moment, folks. Do you understand what's happening? With that, hello, Peggy O'Keefe. Oh my goodness, the shot is on Aidan. Oh my goodness, Aidan Kearney is in the courtroom. Do you understand what Hank Brennan is moving to do right now, ladies and gentlemen? Hank Brennan is moving to...
I know whatever you're probably afraid, right? You don't want to come forward. You fear the Alberts, but you should fear me, like not like physical fear. But like I said, the Alberts fear me much more than I fear them, because I have the ability to severely change their lives. And that goes for you too, Stephen. And that goes for you too, Mr. Lucky. We don't have to get into that yet. But I know your friends are going to send this to you. I just want you to know, you've wanted to keep a low profile for a reason. I get it. I'm not going to allow it anymore. Just know that. The jig is up. Time's up. You've had the chance to do the right thing. So now you've chosen not to, and now I'm giving you an ultimatum. You need to contact me and do the right thing, and you're going to have a conversation with me, or Brian Albert finds out what you did, and then you can deal with him. I heard he's real friendly. I heard he's real nice. Yeah, you can deal with it. He doesn't know, does he? He doesn't know what you did. He doesn't know what you did, does he? Huh? He's going to find out. He's going to find out, and I got proof. So we'll see. Yeah, I'm being intentionally vague. I'm being intentionally vague right now. Lucky. Mr. Lucky. You know who you are. And you know what you did. And you know what you're hiding. And you know what you said. And I know shit. And I know all about you. And you're going to be seeing me, sir. And we're going to have some questions for you. So I highly suggest you reach out to me first before I put this all out there. Because we'll see what happens, sir. Because I know you're watching this. And you know who I'm talking about. Because Brian Albert called you that day. Brian Albert called you a couple times. And I know that is a fact. So stay tuned with that. But at least Brian Albert has the... I hope he's listening right now.
That's not good. Ladies and gentlemen, and that was just the apex. That was the lead of the day. Let's show you what really started the day, ladies and gentlemen. Let's show you what really started the day, which is, oh goodness, ladies and gentlemen, I know you want to see it. It was Hank Brennan's arrival at court. Elevate the process. The super towel themselves. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of reporter towels on this stream. We have Christina reporter towel. We have reporter towel all of 19. And then there is reporter towel. Elevate the process, ladies and gentlemen. Just taking it home every single day, doing excellent on-the-ground work. We are going to take a look at Hank Brennan and the O'Keefe family's arrival. We're going to start with Mr. Call Me Hank Brennan's arrival. God bless you. Elevate the process. Take a look. Take it away, Hank. The man himself, ladies and gentlemen, Hank Brennan, arriving at court. And folks, let's take a look. You know you want to see the next arrival. It is going to be the O'Keefe family, ladies and gentlemen, arriving with ADA Adam Lally. For towels only, ladies and gentlemen, we have Elevate the Process as our on-the-ground towel reporter. Oh, goodness, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the arrival of the O'Keefe family. More exclusive Elevate the Process towel footage. God bless you, Adam Lally. Walk tall, walk strong, Adam Lally. Walk tall, walk strong. You good man, you good man, you. But yes, Paula, what's going on? If you need to go to the basement, if you need to say if there's some kind of weather emergency, you stay safe. You keep us updated, Paula. I'm very worried for you. Please let us know that you are okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are keeping an eye on things, and now I know that you are ready to watch Brian Lucky Loughran's testimony. If you're wondering, did he talk about the Franken truck? Oh, murder by maestro. We got a picture of the Franken truck. Now, before we look at Brian Lucky Loughran's testimony, ladies and gentlemen, is that Brian Lucky Loughran with some FKR supporters? Why, yes, it is. And you might also be wondering, well, we don't share TurtleBoy articles, but TurtleBoy did write an article on June 5th, 2023, the same exact day that Lofrren met with the defense investigators about Lofrren. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to take a look. Ladies and gentlemen, at Lofgren's testimony. I'm just scrolling through to make sure we didn't meet anything else. If you missed the other news, Aidan Kearney, ladies and gentlemen, will not be in the Karen Reed trial courtroom next week. Aidan Kearney was not selected for the media list or the alternative media list. Ladies and gentlemen, big news that broke in the middle of the day. Oh, goodness, ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening in a towel area where you have a tornado alert, please take shelter and be careful. We are not a weather stream. We rely on towels to spread the news to other towels. Also, I'm a member of the media. I don't have ex parte contact with anyone involved in the case, but what people do on their own devices has nothing to do with me. And ladies and gentlemen, we are about to hit 25,000 viewers on the Towel stream, but also we are very worried about our Towel friends who might be in the path of a tornado. We have you in our thoughts, please. Okay, Paula, please keep us updated. We're very worried about you, dear friend. We want this to pass very quickly. We pray that our friends in the path of these tornadoes in the United States, wherever you may be, please let your Towel friends know if you are in the path of these storms. Stay safe. We are worried about you, and we know that you will take efforts, and Paula is in the basement, and you can imagine, ladies and gentlemen, how that may feel. So we'll let Paula know we're with her, and then as that passes, even during this update, we will take time to make sure everyone is okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are, while we're doing this, going to take a look at Karen Read leaving court before we go into Lucky's Cross. It all happened quick, ladies and gentlemen. The Lucky Direct wasn't really about very much at all. We can watch the Franken truck part, but it really wasn't that interesting. But ladies and gentlemen, Lucky didn't even know the name of Fairview Road. Oh, goodness. But we are going to look at Karen Read leaving court because we got the request, and here it is.
Do you think John and Brian Higgins were at odds? We see this angle of them looking at each other.
That way.
Did you pick up on that though? I mean, you were with John all the night. Were they fighting? Did it seem like they were at each other's throats?
I was not paying attention, as you can see. If you watch the full length of the waterfall, which is our two trials, I was pretty much in that spot with Karina. We were there about 90 minutes.
So you didn't notice
in the same
that?
spot. I didn't pick up on it.
Have there been any
friendly
sort of...
with Karina? I have not seen Karina in person since last trial.
Are you happy tomorrow's off, or would you rather just talk through?
I'm happy. We need to
How do you feel about
get
the
work
defense's
done.
case?
When do you think
How
you'll
feel
wrap?
about the defense?
very, very well, solid.
When do you think you'll wrap?
Tuesday, give or take. Tuesday.
I'm telling you, it's almost over. Karen knows it's almost over. I'm telling you, like that. Karen was saying things like, it was hard to make out, but she was saying things like, the case will be the defense's case will be over Tuesday. That means a little from Hank Brennan next week. We'll be done next week. We're going into deliberations next week. Mark my words. Closing arguments next week, and then we'll hear. Karen was asked like if she saw us. She was like, "Oh, I didn't see something." Like she didn't really have a lot to say. Yeah, Karen looks like she's going to be done Tuesday. Done Tuesday, folks. That was the news. Karen Read is going to be done Tuesday. Goodness, ladies and gentlemen, you might be saying to yourself, well, Grant, that was intense. Like, yeah, we have to get work done. Yeah, right. More like I got to go enjoy my last days of freedom. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, no, all of 19. Yes, you're 100% right. It's not a motion filing. It's proposed jury instructions from the defense that there will be, ladies and gentlemen, no Karen Read taking the stand because in the motion in the proposed jury instructions, it says something about the defendant not taking the stand, and they wouldn't put that in there if she was going to take the stand. Now, ladies and gentlemen, Judge Cannoni also denied Karen Read's defense motion for reconsideration of the court's March 31st, 2025 order, excluding the testimony of defense expert Michael Easter. So that won't be happening. They lost Easter. Or at least that part, those parts of Easter's testimony that the defense wanted to get in and lost on their motion. And then also, ladies and gentlemen, you got to remember, before we watch Lucky's testimony, Hank Brennan is moving under a consciousness of guilt theory which is an instruction regarding that jurors get right before deliberations. Hank Brennan is moving for a consciousness of guilt instruction, ladies and gentlemen. And that comes up today because I want you to pay attention. People were wondering, like, okay, so Hank put up the picture of Lucky and the TurtleBoy article, but he was asking about them. Did they come into evidence? Yes. You cannot ask about something like that that's not in evidence. It came into evidence, but that doesn't mean it gets like shown up on the screen. You can, when you show something on the screen in court, it's called a chuck or a display. Just doing that is not very common. You do that with some evidence, but 90% of evidence does not get chalked or put up on the screen. So yes, all that stuff that Brennan showed the witness and then went over to sidebar with, that came in. It was just a lot of it, the discussion was at sidebar because you have to like redact parts of it. It's very complicated. Anyway, so this is the consciousness of guilt motion, okay, ladies and gentlemen? It's not really a motion. So each side gets to submit proposed model jury instructions, and then the judge decides which ones are actually going to get read. Now, in the one you're reading right now, this was the news I broke yesterday, ladies and gentlemen. Hank Brennan's motion for model jury instructions includes a consciousness of guilt section. And it says, now the judge might allow this, might not. You have heard evidence suggesting that the defendant may have intentionally tried to destroy, conceal, or falsify evidence in this case. That was the Ring videos. And may have intentionally attempted to harass or intimidate witnesses whom the defendant believed would testify against her. And remember, Brennan, under McCarthy, which is in footnote 2 of the reporter's note for the model jury instructions on witness intimidation. I'm not a lawyer. None of this is legal advice. I'm a towel. Get a lawyer if you have questions about the law. Get a towel. If you want to prove unconditional love and exist in a world defined by self-interest and greed. So remember, folks, that the witness intimidation doesn't have to be by Karen, and Aidan Kearney doesn't have to be charged with witness intimidating Brian Lucky Loughran for it to come in, okay, for this instruction to be given. It can just be that Aidan and Karen had a joint venture, is what it's called, and that in the joint venture they engaged in conduct which was intimidation. That's enough. For if Karen's team had anything to do with Aidan's article, that's enough for Brennan to get the consciousness of guilt instruction. And so that's what remember this when Lucky's testimony comes up later. If the Commonwealth has proved that the defendant did, you may consider whether such actions indicate feelings of guilt by the defendant and whether, in turn, such feelings of guilt might tend to show actual guilt on these charges. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, that's why what we're about to watch with Brian, I didn't know I wasn't Lucky Loughran, is such a big deal, all right? You got to listen to Hank Brennan's whole cross. I kind of want to watch the Franken truck section just for Murder by Maestro. So maybe we can watch just like a minute of the Franken truck section, okay? Only because Murder by Maestro is a super towel, and I can't not give Murder by Maestro the footage of the Franken truck. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, how weird is it that Henry Blue made a tweet yesterday, what was it, 6/3/25 at 9:46 a.m., and someone caught her on the Karen cam at like 9:45 a.m. on her phone. Interesting timing, huh? But yes, ladies and gentlemen, we got to take a look at the Franken truck, and I have to get the timestamp because if I don't look at the Franken truck, Murder by Maestro is going to be like, what do you mean you didn't look at the Franken truck? And so we will look at a very brief part of the direct about the Franken truck, and then we'll watch Hank Brennan's cross, and that was basically the whole day. And then we're going to watch Hank Brennan's cross of Christina Kolokakis, who didn't say what FKR thought she was going to say, and then it embarrassed her. And then at one point, David Yannetti was like, how's your vision, Brian Lucky Loughran? And can you see what's on the screen? And Lucky was like, good, yes. And then DY was like, what does the screen depict? And Lucky was like, I can't see the last thing on the screen. Oh, goodness. The Franken truck. Murder by Maestro, 9:37 a.m. It's the Franken truck. Oh, goodness. Baby Lucky talking about the Franken truck has been a staple of these streams. Oh, I have Baby Lucky. Before we go into testimony, can we look at Baby Lucky one more time? Who loves Baby Lucky? I love Baby Lucky. Oh, hold on. I got to unmute the site. But everyone loves Baby Lucky. I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the pizza delivery man himself, the pizza delivery baby.
I need to get into my truck and get that prepared to go out. It's called the Franken truck. It is a truck that has a lot of different parts than what it's required. It's not parts that were made for that specific truck. It was a truck that was very uncomfortable at the beginning to use. So they try to make it as comfortable as possible. Franken truck has an air ride suspensions, an air ride seat. So the seat is raised so I can see over the hood. Okay. And I can see about 5 either side of the passenger side, driver's side. I needed to get into my
Oh, thank Baby Lucky. I really appreciate that. I was very confused about the Franken truck. That has given me so much context. I feel so much better now. I understand. Paula, my goodness, I looked at some of those images. That is devastating. While I was pulling up the article, that's devastating, my dear friend. I have a connection to Creve Coeur, a girlfriend or a partner many years ago lived in Creve Coeur. I spent some time there, out there. It is a very nice city. I loved my time in Creve Coeur. I loved her very much. I hope she's doing well. She knows who she is. One day she's going to hear this and be like, oh my God, he remembered. I remembered you in our trip to the Indian restaurant, and we went to the hookah lounge. I loved you dearly. I was just kind of an idiot and couldn't really express it, so sorry about that. But, well, I'm working on it. I did my best. I'm just a little towel. Oh, it's Murder by Maestro. Yes, we are going to watch it. I was like, I got lost thinking about my dear old girlfriend from Creve Coeur, Missouri. She wasn't actually, well, she was from Creve Coeur. I met her a long time ago. It was a very long time ago now, actually, almost 2 decades. Oh, goodness, I'm old if things were happening in my life 2 decades ago. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, so that was the Arrival. That was the Franken truck. That's what I was looking for. It was 9:23. Murder by Maestro, the Franken truck, 9:37. We are going to watch it right now, my dear friends. So I'm going to bring up Lucky's testimony. We're starting with the Franken truck. We're mostly interested in Hank Brennan's cross. Get ready. Murder by Maestro. It's as good as you think, if not better, my friend. They talk about the Franken truck. Oh, my goodness. Here we go.
Do you recognize what is depicted in those photos?
Yes, I do.
And did you take those photos
I did.
at my request?
Yes.
What do those photos depict?
They depict the inside of truck 30 or Franken truck.
Oh, hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Before we look at Franken truck, Jew drops, you super towelette. You have an amazing day. You get some rest. You tell Kiki and Riri we say hi, and they are super towels. You are loved, super towelette, Jew drops. I'm not going to go for too long. Don't worry. I'm going to end the recap in the next hour or so, and I'm going to get some rest. We'll be live tomorrow, not for a full day, just for a short day on the off day. We'll get caught up. We'll talk about big developments. We'll laugh. We'll be towel friends somewhere around 8 a.m. Eastern. As you know, same time every day. Maybe I'll sleep in an hour late tomorrow. Love you, super towelette, Jew drops. You have a wonderful night, my dear friends. Sleep well knowing you are loved, as are Kiki and Riri.
And is there one that actually depicts the outside from the front as well?
Yes.
Do those photos fairly and accurately depict Franken truck as it looked on or about January 29th of 2022?
Yes.
I would offer those, Your Honor.
I have no objections to any of the photos.
All right, thank you.
Perhaps they could be marked with the next exhibit number A through D.
Yes. And once that's done, you can feel free to publish.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And with the court's permission, Mr. Wolf, if you would publish them one at a time in the order we discussed. I imagine that is 211A, Madam Court Reporter.
Ms. Gianetti, why don't you take the photos so you'll know what they are?
Great idea. Okay. Could you explain what 211A depicts for this jury?
That is the front of truck 30, Franken truck, and it's depicting the 2 mirrors on the right and left side of the fenders.
Okay. What about the next one, please, Mr. Wolf? Can you identify, this is 211B, sir.
Yes, that's the inside of the Franken truck looking out the windshield.
As if you were seated in the driver's seat?
Correct.
Next photo, please. This is 211C. What does this depict?
This is depicting on the range that I would see seated in the front seat, looking out the windshield, and depicting how much I will be able to see.
Okay, and this would be more toward the left side in front of you as you're seated in the driver's seat?
Correct.
All right, next photo, please. This is 211D. Could you explain this to the jury?
Again, I'm sitting in the front seat of the Franken truck, and I'm taking a picture out the right side of the windshield, again, depicting on how much I can see out it.
Thank you. Okay, we can take those down and put the lights on. Okay, so you previously testified that you got to the garage about 2:15 a.m. on January 29th. Could you explain to the jury what do you do when you get there at 2:15 a.m.?
So at 2:15, we do a simple circle check to make sure that there are no defects with the truck. We go ahead and we make sure it has plenty of diesel. And then I put, any supplies that I may have for the night, planning on an overnight shift. And then I get in the truck and I proceed to my route.
And what type of supplies are you talking about, sir?
Any types of drinks, food, anything, snacks.
Preparing for a long night?
Yes.
The circle check, does that mean what it sounds like, where you sort of take a circle around the vehicle?
Yes, we're trying to make sure that the truck is safe, that there is no defects that would hinder the job ahead of it of being able to plow.
And when you did the circle check in those early morning hours, was there anything unusual that you found?
None.
Were you comfortable driving the snowplow that night?
Yes.
All right. All we were doing that for was the Franken truck. I'm back. And Paula, our dear friend, if you are okay now, I know you were moving to your basement. We are going to do a special thing just for Paula. I hope nobody will be upset because Paula, our dear friend, is taking shelter. So we are going to do a special treat for Paula. We are going to play the Baby Lucky clip before we start Hank Brennan's Cross. Now, you may be saying to yourself, I love the Baby Lucky clip. We could watch the Baby Lucky clip 67,000 times and I would still be happy. Okay, that's great. I'm so thrilled because that's what we're going to do. I'm thrilled you love the Baby Lucky clip. And I also think we should extend a super thank you, our super towel thank you to Murder by Maestro, because we wouldn't have the Baby Lucky clip if not for Murder by Maestro. And who brings more joy and smiles to the world than the 0001-1001-year-old binary speaking towel himself, Murder by Maestro. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it is a glorious day, and you know that I have the Baby Lucky clip for Paula. I have it queued up. I literally have it ready at all times, ladies and gentlemen. Like clip. Here you go. We for Paula. Baby Lucky, can you please tell us about the Franken truck? We just saw pictures of it. A lot of people in the chat, Baby Lucky, were very confused. I need your erudite and informed perspective, your rhetorical exposition on the Franken truck. Please, Baby Lucky, help us understand.
I needed to get into my truck and get that prepared to go out. It's called the Franken truck. It is a truck that has a lot of different parts than what it's required. It's not parts that were made for that specific truck. It was a truck that was very uncomfortable at the beginning to use, so they tried to make it as comfortable as possible. Franken truck has an air ride suspensions, an air ride seat, so the seat is raised so I can see over the hood, and I can see about 5 either side of the passenger side, driver's side.
Baby Lucky, that makes so much more sense. I understand now. You are a towel. Okay, that's what I've concluded. Baby Lucky, look at that adorable Baby Lucky. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, wow, Paula. If only I knew that. My heart was broken before I got there. Oh, but you know what warms my heart up? Little Baby Lucky. Oh, God bless you, Baby Lucky. Towel loves you. Oh, yes, we all love Baby Lucky. And if Paula wants to see the Baby Lucky clip, you know we're going to do it, ladies and gentlemen. All right, who's ready for Hank Brennan's Cross? We're literally going to jump forward because all Lucky does is get confused, change his testimony, basically say he's blind, and then we get Hank Brennan on Cross, which is just devastating. And if you're wondering, did the Hankinator pull a Hankinator later, ladies and gentlemen, did he walk through and say, yes, call me Hank? Oh, yes, Hank Brennan told Brian Lucky Loughran that he could call him Hank. He didn't actually, but he may as well have.
He metropolitan the Zamboni.
Hold on one second.
Community school.
That's enough, David Yannetti.
Skipping it.
That's enough, David Yannetti. That's enough. We want to hear Hank Brennan. Hold on. I did not jump forward enough. I'm sorry. I would never torment you by making you listen to David Yannetti for that long. That's literally illegal, ladies and gentlemen. You can't do that to people.
Very much.
All right, here we go with Hank Brennan's cross of Brian Lucky Loughran.
The exhibit.
And yes, before we begin, Hank does a great job of showing that Lucky was a victim in all of this, in my opinion. And then Hank goes on to do look at the schema of this, be watching for this. Hank does two brilliant things. He points out that Lucky's memory and eyesight is terrible, and that he didn't see a car until 5 a.m., and he didn't see police until 6:30, and Lucky's story changed multiple times. Then Hank Brennan crescendos, no one really expected it. He talks about it in the beginning, then comes back to it at the end of the cross. Hank Brennan gets in the Turtle Boy intimidation for the consciousness of guilt. So watch. Brennan's got 2 goals in this cross. Get Lucky, show the jury Lucky's a terrible witness who's not reliable and didn't know what he was seeing and couldn't remember if he wanted to and has bad eyesight and wasn't where he said when he first said it, and his story changed, and etc., etc. The timeline was wrong from the beginning with Lucky. His actual timeline was that he didn't see a car until 5 a.m., which was probably Karen Reed's car, maybe Carrie Roberts' car if he didn't get there till closer to 6, and then he didn't see police until 6:30. Now, ladies and gentlemen, also watch for Hank Brennan. He went into this cross trying to get Lucky to admit that Lucky read the articles about Turtle Boy, or that someone in Lucky's family or community told him about that specific article. Not so Brennan could put the article up on the screen, but so that Brennan could make his consciousness of guilt article. Hold on. Okay, I have to watch Murder by Maestro's most recent post before we start Hank Brennan's cross. If Murder by Maestro says I'm not allowed to watch it first, I have to just go to Murder by Maestro's profile. Ladies and gentlemen, we're doing this in real time. Who knows? Murder by Maestro, this better not be some kind of trick that involves me looking at videos of kangaroos, although I do love kangaroos. Okay, I can't look at the video. Hold on, no, I can't find it. The only video I see Murder by Maestro on your feed is a video of Karen leaving court. Hold on. Is it Karen? Did you change the video of Karen leaving court to be something else? Hold on. I reloaded Murder by Maestro's profile. No, it's just all oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Fine. We're going to watch this. Murder by Maestro. We're going to watch it. Is that Steven Tyler from Aerosmith? What is wrong with you? All right, here we go.
Karen, are you suggesting that Deborah may have been coaxed into changing her testimony?
Yes.
What's your reaction to her demeanor?
I didn't suggest it. She did. When she was called into the commissioner's office, the story completely changed, was recanted. So I don't think it was a suggestion. I think I heard what you heard.
But wasn't she confronted with data from the FBI that said, no, you weren't, the car wasn't there by the time you left?
This is the first I've ever heard that. I have no knowledge of anything like that.
Did you expect her to be like that on the stand today?
I've never seen, met, or heard her voice before, so I didn't know.
What's your response to her accusations of pressuring her to perjure herself?
We subpoenaed her to testify to what she told other authorities and just wanted her to be as honest with us as she was with them. And today she's now telling us that was a lie. So we just wanted her to repeat what she told other law enforcement agencies under penalty of perjury.
Karen,
that's all.
Karen,
Thank you.
Thank you.
You never told her to lie.
Never.
Murder by Maestro. That's hilarious. All right, gotta give that a like. Oh goodness. Oh good. Fine, Murder by Maestro. Fine, I could feel your soul telling me to do it. All right, here we go. We're going to Hank's Cross. Get ready. Hank's Cross is absolutely epic. Buckle your seatbelts. Get ready for the ride.
All right, Mr. Brennan, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Have you and I met before?
No, sir.
This is our first time speaking?
Yes, sir.
Sir, you say that your memory from that night is very strong. Would it be fair to say that before today, you've talked about this case many times?
Yes.
You've interviewed with different law enforcement people as well as civilians and attorneys, haven't you?
Correct.
I have not been one of them.
No, you have not.
And is it fair to say that when you've recounted that night as far as times and what you saw, many times your memory has changed? Is that fair to say?
It has not.
You spoke to a private investigator on behalf of the defense shortly after that night?
Yes.
Was that the first time that you spoke to somebody about what you had seen or not seen?
Yes.
That is the first time?
Yes.
Inevitably, over time, you have given statements to at least 4 different people, correct?
Correct.
And you've testified in court under oath?
Correct.
During the pendency from that night until today, it's fair to say there are many times where you have been intimidated, isn't it?
No.
You've been threatened.
Nope.
You were aware, sir, that you were being threatened by an online blogger to expose you?
I was not.
You're saying as you sit here today, you have no awareness in the history of this case that you were being threatened by an online blogger?
I was not threatened by an online blogger.
Was the online blogger threatening or saying that he would expose you and tell personal things about you if you weren't helpful?
He was not threatening.
Let's remove the word threatening. Was the person communicating and making clear to you that if you didn't testify in a certain way, there would be some consequence to you?
Objection. Can we have a time frame, please?
Any time from when you first spoke to the private investigator until today, were there communications made to you by an online blogger that there would be consequence for you if you didn't testify in a way that was acceptable to them?
No.
You listened, of course, didn't you, to podcasts that were about you?
I did not.
People told you about them.
Yes, they did.
When friends told you about them, you knew who that person was that was making those claims, correct?
Correct.
You were well aware of the person had a very strong and large social media presence.
I didn't know how large or what his presence were, but yes, I knew he had a blog.
Well, you know now because you follow that blogger now, don't you?
I do follow him, yes.
You pay for a subscription?
I do not.
Did you get one for free?
I did not.
And in following that blogger, you know full well the power that person has to get attention from the community to harass, correct?
Yes.
And so during the pendency of this case, not only were you aware that you were being pressured to testify a certain way, you also knew there'd be consequences if you didn't. Isn't that true?
Objection.
I'm going to allow that.
The premise of that question is not accurate.
So he can answer it.
You knew there was pressure for you to testify a certain way in this case, didn't you?
I did not know I was being required to testify a certain way. I was also at the time dealing with the loss of my wife. I was not paying any attention to any social media.
Sorry for your loss, but you are aware during the pendency of this case that there has been pressure on you to testify in a certain way. Isn't that fair to say?
No,
Sir, you received a call from that blogger, didn't you?
I did.
And during that call, did you know the person was recording you?
I did not.
You later learned that the person recorded you.
I did not.
Do you know that your conversations were spread throughout the community online?
I was.
Sir, some of those communications or inquiries were claims that you would be exposed for personal matters if you didn't testify a certain way, weren't they?
No.
Inevitably, you've met this person, haven't you?
I've seen him. I haven't met him.
Have you ever spent time with him?
No, I have not.
You're still a follower of that blog.
I am.
When you follow the blog, do you read anything or do you watch it?
No, I don't do much anything towards the blogger.
see there are oftentimes articles about you.
No.
Haven't you ever been encouraged to do the right thing?
No.
Haven't you ever been celebrated after you've testified in a way favorable for one
Yes.
side or the other?
Yes.
And so when you were being celebrated, that certainly took off any pressure that there would be consequence, didn't it?
Objection.
Ask it differently.
When you were celebrated for testifying a certain way, did you find that to be encouraging?
Objection.
I'm going to allow it.
I did find it to be encouraging, but I did not want it. I don't think I deserved it. All I was doing was my job and telling the truth.
Did you enjoy the attention that you got?
I did not.
Did you pose in photographs with people who support one side or the other?
I did.
And when you were in those photographs, are you saying that you didn't enjoy the attention that you were receiving?
I did not. Again, I was trying to be polite and trying to avoid any confrontation that may come from something if I said no.
Well, did anybody from the district attorney's office ever suggest they would confront you or punish you if you didn't testify a certain way?
No.
How many friends contacted you about what was being said before you testified, the pressure? How many people told you about that?
I couldn't tell you. All my friends were telling me.
So you were hearing a lot of noise or information from your friend group and community about what was being said about you?
Yes.
And this was before you testified at the first trial, sir?
This was before.
Sir, you work hard, don't you?
I do.
You work many different jobs.
I do.
You try to be a good citizen.
I do.
You are not looking for attention.
I am not.
It was brought to you.
It was brought to me.
You wish you never had that attention, don't you?
Yes.
Because you just want to live your life the way you want to live it rather than have people you don't know attacking, criticizing, or intimidating you.
Objection.
I'll allow that.
Could you repeat that, please?
Would it be fair to say that you simply want to live your life the way you've been living it without outside people attacking or pressuring or threatening you?
Yes.
On June 15, 2023, you were contacted by the defense private investigator, weren't you? And you may not know the dates. Were you contacted twice by the private investigator?
I would need to know what time frame we're looking at.
Fair enough. By the way, the blogger that I speak of, do you know if he is friendly or supports one side over the other?
I know he is friendly towards one side, yes.
Okay. The side sitting in the back of the room?
I would say the defense team.
You've interacted with a private investigator hired by the defense?
Yes.
Have you also interacted with any of the attorneys?
Yes.
Which attorneys have you interacted with?
Mr. Yannetti.
Have you contacted or have you spoken to any other attorneys other than Mr. Yannetti?
Just Mr. Yannetti.
How many times have you spoken to Mr. Yannetti?
Again, what are we talking? First trial, this trial?
The entire time from that night until today. Can you remember how many times that you've spoken?
About 5 times.
How many times have you gone in to be interviewed by him?
4 times.
During those interviews, were they spaced out over the course of this case?
Yes.
What was the purpose of those interviews?
To go over my testimony.
When you went over testimony, were you ever shown prior testimony?
Yes.
Were you shown prior reports?
No.
Were you shown a prior investigator's report?
Yes.
Were you shown a prior report by a law enforcement agency that is not the state police and not Canton?
Not by Mr. Yannetti. I saw that first document for the first time during the first trial.
When you were discussing your testimony, was there a discussion about the fact that the times that you gave the private investigator were different than the report from that law enforcement agency?
Could you repeat that question, please?
When you were preparing the trial in those meetings, was it brought up, did you discuss that there was a difference in your memory, or at least in the reports, between what you told the defense private investigator and what you told that other law enforcement agency?
No.
Were you aware that there was a difference between the different statements attributed in your memory at the time?
The first trial, yes.
When you were with the defense preparing for trial, did you go over your testimony?
Yes.
Go over questions and answers?
Yes.
Were you ever subjected to a make-pretend cross-examination about issues that were important in this case?
No.
Were you ever pointed to any particular issues that were important to talk about in this case?
No.
When you did the questions and answers, were they written down or just a conversation?
Can you repeat that one, please? I'm sorry.
When you went through the questions and answers in preparing, practicing for your testimony, were they written down?
So ask it differently.
When you were preparing for your testimony, were the questions and answers written down, or was it just speaking?
Just speaking.
Those 4 times that you met, is that a guess, or was it 4 times?
It was about 4 times, yes.
Could it have been more?
No.
And during those 4 times, was there anything different other than going through questions and answers about testimony and preparation? Was there any other subjects you talked about?
There were none.
Did you ever receive any compensation, sir?
I received none.
Do you know whether people were sending you compensation that you didn't receive?
No.
You don't know?
I never received anything.
Were you given anything to bring home with you so that you could remember past testimony or some of the questions and answers that were going to be asked?
No.
How long were your meetings in preparation for your testimony?
About 45 minutes to an hour.
Were they all about the same time, or were they different? When you came into court last year, it's fair to say this is after you became aware of essentially being targeted, correct?
You can answer that if you can. Can you answer that, Mr. Lofrren?
I can. I don't ever felt like I was being targeted.
This was after you received all the information from your friends and people in the community that you were being attacked.
I'll allow that.
Again, I don't feel like I was being targeted.
Are you concerned after this case what happens with the blogger that you follow?
No.
You talked about your meeting with the private investigator. The first time you met him, do you remember that meeting?
Yes.
Do you remember where you met him?
I met him at my place of employment.
Did you go anywhere with him that day?
No, I did not.
You had a conversation with him and you spoke about what you had remembered from that night?
Yes.
Do you remember when you spoke to that private investigator, you weren't sure how many times you went up and down Fairview that night? That you had said 2 or 3?
No, I told him I went up at 2:30 at 2. I told him at 3:30 I went up 2. Went up and down. And I told him about 3 hours later I went up and down. I went down and wasn't able to go around the police cruisers and had to turn around at Carriage Lane.
You mentioned that you believe you told the private investigator that you went up and down at 2:30. Do you remember when you spoke to the private investigator you actually said 3 o'clock?
I don't remember the 3 o'clock.
May I approach?
Yes.
And before I do you remember you said that when you went on your second pass, it was around 3:15?
I told him I went up Fairview between about 2:40 to 2:45, and I said about 45 minutes later I went for the second time.
Okay. Now you had said 2:30, and you just now said 2:40 to 2:45, and then you said 45 minutes later.
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember telling the private investigator that when you think, or you said you saw a Ford Edge, you were actually still on Cedar Brook, not on Fairview passing by it, but you saw it from the street at Cedar Brook? Do you remember telling him that?
I don't remember.
Crest.
Secret. I don't remember ever saying that.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
I'll show you a copy. This is a report that you didn't write, so I don't want you to read it. I want to show it to you and see if it helps remind you of what you told the private investigator that day. You can look at any part of this, but what I'm asking you is whether or not you remember telling the private investigator that when you saw the car, you weren't passing on Fairview, you were up on Cedar Crest. That's the question I'm asking. So I'd ask you to look at whatever part you want, but I'm going to point out the part to you. When you're done, you don't answer, just look up and then I'll get to ask you some questions about remembering, okay? So I've directed to this part, but you can look at any part that you want, sir. Are you done, sir?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Sir, do you now remember when you were speaking to the defense investigator about seeing a car? You said that about 3:30 to 4 a.m. when you were plowing Cedar Crest Road, you looked toward Fairview Road and saw a small SUV parked in front of the house. Remember telling the PI that?
I never remember telling him that.
When you spoke to law enforcement, not the Canton police or the state police, you understood it was important to be as accurate as possible?
Yes.
And you understood, at least with that law enforcement agency, if you misled them in any way, it could be up to a 10-year penalty?
Yes.
When you spoke to them, did you take that interview very seriously?
Yes.
Try to be as precise and accurate as you could?
Yes.
And when you spoke to them, obviously, like anybody, you had in mind there could be serious consequences if they felt misled.
Yes.
You try to be honest with them?
Yes.
Provide them your best memory and good faith?
Yes.
And this was shortly before, well, actually, this was May 24th, 2023, correct?
Correct.
When you met, there was more than one person there from this agency?
I believe so.
Was was there potentially two?
There was two.
And when you met with them, they asked you about when you began working that night.
Yes.
You told them 11:30 to midnight.
I never told them that.
And so as you sit here today, your memory is you did not tell those law enforcement agents that you began work at 11:30 to 12?
We had a 2:30 start time.
I understand, but I'm asking you.
I never told them. It was always 2:30 start time.
When you spoke to them, do you remember telling them the first time you were out near the area was midnight?
Nope. No.
When you spoke to those law enforcement personnel, were they taking notes?
I believe so.
Have you ever seen their report?
The first trial I did, yes.
Who showed you that report?
It was shown to me by Prosecutor Lally.
You think Prosecutor Lally showed you that report?
It was shown to me.
And do you remember telling those two law enforcement personnel that you believe that there were emergency vehicles, ambulances, or police cars in front of Fairview at 3 to 3:30 a.m.?
I do not.
Are you saying that you did not say these things to them, or are you saying that that's not your memory?
That's not what I said.
And so you're saying that's wrong. You're denying
Correct.
you made those statements.
Correct.
At the time they say that you told them there was emergency vehicles there at 3 a.m., that is the same time that you told the PI that you saw the Ford Edge, around 3:30 to 4, correct?
About 3:30 is when I saw the Ford Edge.
It was dark out that night, wasn't it?
Correct.
There are no street lights down near that flagpole area of 34 Fairview, is there?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Was it on that night?
I can't tell you honestly if it was.
You testified at trial? I'm sorry, at a proceeding last year?
I testified that there were. It was asked to me that there were not any streetlights, and I answered it in the affirmative way. And living in that neighborhood, I saw that there were actual streetlights.
You testified at a proceeding last year, didn't you?
Yes.
When you testified at the proceeding, did you meet anybody from the defense close in time to that proceeding?
I don't know, when we met, how close to the proceedings it was.
Do you remember being prepared before you went into trial last time?
Yes.
By
Yannetti, excuse me.
Do you remember telling the defense private investigator that you made your final pass at 6:30 a.m.?
I remember I told him it was about 3 hours going down Cedar Crest and was not able to go to the end of Fairview due to the first responders.
At trial last year, do you remember saying it was 5:30?
I did.
And today you had said about 6:15.
Yes.
Okay. You weren't timing anything on a watch for times, were you?
I was not.
You were not accounting in any way for time whatsoever when you were out that night, were you?
No, I was not.
When you're providing times, are you trying to use your best memory?
Yes.
Do you recognize that you have a differing memory on times of what you did that night?
No.
You talked about your view from the tow truck and that you have a bunch of lights on it. On the tow truck, you had mentioned that your vision to the side was 5 to 6 feet.
Can you rephrase that, please?
Yes, of course. You said when you were driving your tow truck, you could see forward and sideways.
Okay. I don't want to be. I don't drive a tow truck.
My apologies. My apologies. Your snow plow.
Thank you.
You said you can see forward and sideways.
I can see forward, I can see diagonal, and I can see right to left.
When you look right to left, you said you could see about 5 feet.
Correct.
Do the lighting conditions affect how well you can see?
No.
Does the weather?
Yes.
When you're plowing, are you ever looking at the street in front of you?
Yes.
Are you looking at people's front yards?
Yes.
And so, what did you see as far as the front door of the Albert House that night? Was it open or closed?
It was closed.
Were lights on?
I can't answer that for sure. I don't remember if there were lights on.
How about the neighbors on the left? Were you looking at their front line?
Yes.
Did you see if their lights were on?
Again, I didn't recognize if their lights were on.
Do you look at every neighbor's front lawn up to the door as you're driving in the snow plowing?
I look to the right and to the left, and my eyes will graze to the yard. Yes, I will look there.
You were saying you have a specific memory of looking at the Albert front yard all the way to the door. Do you have a specific memory of looking at the other neighbors' yards to their door?
Can you repeat that, please? I'm sorry.
Yes, you said that you looked at the Albert house all the way to the door.
Correct.
Do you have a memory of looking at any other houses all the way to the door?
Yes.
Okay. Which house had a dumpster in front of it?
I don't know. I wasn't paying attention to a dumpster. Dumpster wouldn't be in the front yard.
Are you sure on your route there was no dumpsters in anybody's front yard?
I can tell you there was a dumpster this week.
I'm more interested in January 29, 2020.
I can't answer to that. I don't remember.
A dumpster, a 15 by 20 foot dumpster, that would be bigger than a man's body, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would be.
And so you have no really specific memory of the other homes in the neighborhood that night?
I mean, I looked. I saw. I didn't see a dumpster. That would have definitely stuck out.
Okay. You said you had vision as far as your eyes could see.
Correct.
What does that mean?
Means if there were, my eyes were, as long as they're open, I can see as far as they will let me see.
Is that dependent on lighting conditions, darkness, snow?
Correct.
That night, did you have any difficulty paying attention or driving?
I did not.
Did you have a small accident that night?
I did.
Okay, what did you hit?
I hit a portable basketball net.
Was that part because of the weather conditions? You didn't have a good opportunity to see it?
No. I definitely saw it and just did not judge enough.
You said that you went up and down the road a couple of times. When you were asked to describe the car that you said you saw, when you first spoke to the defendant's private investigator, you didn't give any detail about the type of car, did you?
I told her it was a Ford Edge.
Okay. When you first spoke to the investigator, you used the words Ford Edge?
I did.
Did they bring you to a parking lot at some point?
They did.
And when they brought you to a parking lot, did they have you go out in the parking lot and look at a Ford Edge?
They did.
And when they had you go out and look at the Ford Edge, did they have you identify that as the type of car?
Yes, they did.
And when you did that, how many cars were in the parking lot?
We had a hockey game, so there were several, at least 100, 150.
Who pointed you to the Ford Edge?
I pointed to it.
Did the investigator take you to the Ford Edge?
No, he did not.
It was just an open parking lot, and he asked you to look around to see if there happened to be a similar car?
No, I told him a Ford Edge. He wanted to make sure I knew what a Ford Edge looked like. I pointed to the Ford Edge, and he was satisfied.
So after you said a Ford Edge, he brought you to a parking lot to point out a car?
We were at my place of business. We just walked out the door.
Where was that?
At the Metropolis ice rink.
The rink?
Ice rink, yes.
Did you then meet the investigator later on at a school?
Yes, I did.
And who did you meet at the school?
I met Paul again.
And what was the purpose of that?
He wanted to go through my route.
You wanted to go through your route?
Correct.
And then, did you choose to meet at the school?
I did.
You did?
I did.
And why did you choose the school?
It was an easier landmark for the gentleman to get to, and it was minutes from my route.
Did you know that former Trooper Proctor's sister worked there?
I had no idea.
You said last year that when you went by Fairview, did you say that you would buy your final pass at 5:30 a.m.?
No.
Okay. May I approach?
Yes.
Sir, when you have contacts, you also wear reading glasses?
Yes. I can't read things up close.
Understood. This is trial testimony, testimony from June 21st, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And you were asked do you recall what time it was that you wound up back on Fairview? You said, I don't honestly recall what specific time. Yes?
Yes.
And then you were asked, sure. Approximately, if it was 3:15 to 3:30, that second time, what would be your best estimate of the time when you came back? And what did you say?
Say about 5:30.
And so even last year, you were having some difficulty remembering the times, right?
System.
Were you having difficulty last year remembering the times that you were on Fairview?
No.
When you said you were on Fairview last year at 5:30, you didn't see anything on the Albert front lawn at 5:30 a.m.?
I wasn't on Fairview at 5:30 a.m.
Okay. Were you asked last year about your travels on Fairview?
Yes.
Okay. When you asked about, recall, was time you wound up on Fairview, and you said you didn't remember. Do you remember that testimony?
I do.
And is that true testimony?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so you had some difficulties in your memory of when you were on Fairview when you testified last year. Isn't that fair to say?
No, it's not fair.
And then you were asked approximately if it was 3:15 to 3:30 the second time, what time did you come back?
And I said, if I were to guess, I said 45 minutes later.
Did you say, I would say, if I had to say, it would have been 5:30 up Fairview?
That time was incorrect. It was 6:15. I couldn't go down any further due to the police presence.
So your testimony last year, you understandably made a mistake about the time, correct?
I did.
And it's true, isn't it, that you really have somewhat foggy memory about the times.
It is not.
That time of 5:30 is very different than the time you told the agents when you met them. I'm sorry, the law enforcement officials that weren't from Canton or the state police. That was very different than when you told them 3 to 3:30.
Very different.
And it's different than the 3:30 to 4 timeline that you gave the defense private investigator the first time you spoke to them. Correct?
Correct.
And it's different than what you told the jury today that it was 6:15.
It's different, but it's not.
When you plowed that night, did you have any reason to look for somebody who was lying on the side of a yard?
No.
Did you have any expectation somebody would be lying helpless on the side of a yard that night?
No.
If you had seen somebody, certainly you would have helped.
Correct.
When you said that, when the private investigator asked you where you were when you said you saw the Ford Edge, are you saying that you didn't tell the private investigator that you were on Cedar?
I don't remember telling him I was on Cedar Crest. I do remember telling him that I had turned onto Fairview and saw the vehicle.
Cedar Crest in a storm at night is quite a distance from the flagpole at Fairview, isn't it?
No.
About 300 feet?
Roughly.
Difficult to see under those conditions?
No.
Could we have Exhibit 71, Stream 0, at about 6:17 a.m., please? Stop it there. Do you see that street light?
I do.
Okay. At the end of that road, past the street light, is Cedar Crest, correct?
Correct.
Is that a fair depiction of the elements that night around that time?
Yes.
And in this case, there's further illumination with the car that's facing us?
Correct.
That wasn't there, was it?
Correct.
You said after you saw law enforcement, did you come down Fairview after you saw law enforcement?
I was on Fairview already when I saw the law enforcement.
Did you drive by Cedar Crest again to go back and forth and watch what was going on, or did you go on your route?
I went on my route, which included Cedar Crest.
Did you keep driving by because you wanted to watch, or did you just leave and do your regular route?
I went and did my regular route.
Could I have 6:19:27, please? And could you play it? If you could back up a little before 6:19:27. Is that weather consistent with what it looked like to you?
Yes.
Is that you there?
I don't know if that's me. Yes, that's me. That is me.
Could we go to 6:32:45, please? Is that you again?
That one, I can't tell if that was me again.
Could we go to 6:35:14, please? Was that you?
I don't see it. I don't see the truck. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Could we go back to 6:35:12?
That looks like to be a pickup truck. That does not look like my truck.
6:37:45, please. And that's you again, right?
Again, I can't tell you for sure if that was me.
Those were not your red and orange lights consistent with the earlier ones that went by?
What I saw the first time was the reflecting tape off the body of my truck.
We go to
I have
7.
a plow guy that is a contractor that we work tandem together.
And was he out there that night as well, going by Fairview?
Correct.
Okay. Did you ever tell the private investigator about him?
Yes, I did.
7 o'clock, 22 seconds, please. Is that you, sir?
I can't say for sure.
7:15, 45 seconds, please. Do you recognize that plow?
I do not.
7:19 and 55 seconds, please. Was that you, sir?
That was me.
How long does your route take?
It's hard to say. I mean, as long as it's snowing, it can take as long as it takes.
Well, if you're going to do a pass, how long does an entire pass take?
If I were to do from Cedar Crest to the end, it would take probably 10 minutes. If I were to do the entire route, I'm not cleaning up, I'm just giving it a pass so people can get through. Could take about 3 hours, could take 4 hours.
When you mentioned Brian Albert on your direct examination, had you talked to the defense about Brian Albert in your preparation for testimony?
No.
You knew some of the Albert family?
I know the entire Albert family.
And you know Brian Albert as a police officer?
Yes, I do.
Why is it that 3 times in your direct testimony you characterized him as a first responder?
Because he's a police officer, they're first responders.
Did anybody ever suggest to you to use the terms or the phrases first responder when you were describing Brian Albert?
No one did. Those are my words.
Since your trial testimony last year, have you received any more focusing or targeting of harassment?
Ask it differently, Mr. Brennan.
Since last year when you testified, have you received any recent aggression towards you for testifying?
No.
Have you had any further focus or problems?
No.
Objection. I move this one further objection.
I'll strike that.
I have no further questions.
Very briefly, sir. You were asked by Mr. Brennan about whether you saw a dumpster that night. Do you recall that line of questioning?
I do.
In the aftermath of January 29th of 2022, was a dumpster all over the news for the next 3.5 years?
Not that I'm aware of.
You were asked about going through your route with the defense investigator and giving a statement to the defense investigator.
Yes.
How soon after January 29th of 2022 was that?
2 weeks.
Were the events fresh in your mind at that time?
Yes.
Finally, actually not finally, I've got two more points, but they're both brief. You had mentioned that night you...
No, David Yannetti. We're going to jump to Hank Brennan because this is the glorious part. Get ready for this on the recross. Get ready. Hold on. This is this is where it gets really good.
Route with...
We're going to see TurtleBoy soon. Don't worry.
How soon after January 29th?
That's enough, David Yannetti.
In your mind at that time?
Yeah.
Did you also testify that after...
Here we go with Tank.
That 30 as the final time.
My head. I'm sorry, Matt. This 6:15, 6:30.
Here we go with Tank.
You mentioned you're trying to do the math in your head. There is no reason why you would specifically remember certain times on each pass other than trying to remember and give an accounting, right?
Could you rephrase that, please?
Sure. You don't have your watch out on a certain schedule that you have to pass a certain street at a certain time.
Correct.
You weren't marking your times to some event when you were driving up and down the street that night, were you?
No.
So you're trying to go back with your memory and piece it together the best you can.
Correct.
And that's why you're giving estimates, yes?
Correct.
And when you spoke to those law enforcement officials, not Canton, not state police, and you said at 3 o'clock you saw first responder vehicles, that was based on your memory, wasn't it?
Yes.
It was based on your memory.
Not at 3:30.
Right. Do you know that there was a car similar to a Ford Edge in front of 34 Fairview around 6 a.m. that morning?
I wasn't able to get in front of Fairview Drive, 34 Fairview, at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Have you ever met Kerry Roberts before?
I have not.
Counsel just asked you if there was a lot of media about this case, and you said that there was. Did he just ask you a question about whether there was a lot of attention on this case?
Objection.
Did he just talk to you about everything that happened after this case, all the attention on this case?
Objection.
You remember his question about all the attention after this case?
He asked specifically a question about the dumpsters.
And he said that wasn't subject to a lot of attention, was it?
Correct.
Right. But this case was.
The case itself, yes.
The people involved in this case were subject to a lot of attention.
Correct.
And you spoke to the defense investigator after this case as far as attention is concerned. You remember speaking to the investigator on June 5th, 2023?
Yes.
And do you know, coincidentally, that is the day that the blogger put out the articles on you, accusing you of not doing the right thing?
Objection.
May I approach?
Yes.
Showing you a document. Let's take a look at that document. What day is that document dated?
June 5th, 2023.
Without reading it, that document talks about you.
Correct.
And your friends and people in the community talked to you about this article, didn't they?
Not specifically this article, but they were sending me stuff that were being printed about me, yes.
Why don't you take a little look at what's said and you can tell us whether that's the same type of information that was being conveyed to you through intermediaries.
Can you ask that question again, please?
Okay, sir. Was this some of the kind of attention that you were receiving on June 5th after you spoke to the defense investigator?
Yes.
Like from sidebar?
Okay, folks, do you understand what's happening here? This is just absolutely, we're at an absolutely huge moment, folks. Do you understand what's happening? With that, hello, Peggy O'Keefe. Oh my goodness, the shot is on Aidan. Oh my goodness, Aidan Kearney is in the courtroom. Do you understand what Hank Brennan is moving to do right now, ladies and gentlemen? Hank Brennan is moving to introduce Aidan Kearney's blog that he wrote about Brian Lucky Loughran. Now here, do you see the questions Hank Brennan is asking? My name is Grant Smith Ellis, by the way, but do you hear the questions that Hank Brennan is asking? Hank Brennan is basically saying to Lucky, you have to have some kind of knowledge that the article was written for the article to get introduced through this witness. So what Brennan has a larger play here. Remember, he just submitted his model consciousness of guilt jury instruction, ladies and gentlemen, related to witness intimidation. Lucky is a witness. Oh my goodness, Brennan is using Aidan's intimidation of Lucky, and he's going to lay foundation, introduce Aidan's article, and then that's going to be his consciousness of guilt evidence, partially. There's going to be more, I'm sure, against Karen. Oh, this is so bad. It was the same day that Lucky met with Karen's investigators. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Folks, you have to understand the wider context here. This is absolutely incredible. It was absolutely incredible, folks, and I hope you enjoyed watching it with me, because I think I was spot on, and John Depetro ended up agreeing with me. But folks, my word, that was huge. That was absolutely huge. And when I say Brennan's going to introduce it, I mean he's going to use that foundation for his argument, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. And by the way, it's official. Boston 25 gave up on their X feed. We more than doubled them, ladies and gentlemen. Ted Daniel, Eat Your Heart Out Towel Stream is one of the biggest coverages of this case, and I don't say that just for myself and to pump my own ego. It's really more about you all. I feel like I'm just a regular human being. I don't really understand why so many people watch this, and I didn't even understand why John Depetro was so impressed. I didn't know this was anything special, but if John Depetro, who I look up to a lot, thinks this is an important stream, and if Hank Brennan says I can call him Hank, oh, ladies and gentlemen, I did it. I did it. Colleen Henry, I don't know if you're here, but it's a good moment for Colleen Henry to be in the chat. You know why, ladies and gentlemen? Because first of all, we had a request. I think it was from Claudia Franco, our dear Claudia Franco, for the clip from Murder by Maestro's Twitter while we have a break. Ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look. Oh yes, Murder by Maestro.
Karen, are you suggesting that Deborah may have been coaxed into changing her testimony?
Yes.
What's your reaction to her demeanor?
I didn't suggest it. She did. When she was called into the commissioner's office, the story completely changed.
Murder by Maestro, are you wondering if it was around 2015 because Adam Lally brought up an incident about that? Yep.
It was recanted. So I don't think it was a suggestion. I think I heard what you heard.
But wasn't she confronted with data from the FBI that said, no, you weren't, the car wasn't there by the time you left?
This is the first I've ever heard that. I have no knowledge of anything like that.
Did you expect her to be like that on the stand today?
I've never seen, met, or heard her voice before, so I didn't know.
What's your response to her accusations of pressuring her to perjure herself?
We subpoenaed her to testify to what she told other authorities and just wanted her to be as honest with us as she was with them. And today she's now telling us that was a lie. So we just wanted her to repeat what she told other law enforcement agencies under penalty of perjury. That's all. Thank you. Thank you.
You never told her to...
That's obviously just for satire. That's hilarious. And there is a disclaimer that it's satire, obviously. That's hilarious. But ladies and gentlemen, Colleen Henry's here. And ladies and gentlemen, you know what that means before. We watch Hank Brennan's cross of Kristen Kolakathis to hear about how wonderful a human John O'Keefe was. Ladies and gentlemen, Colleen Henry, if Colleen Henry shows up in the chat, ladies and gentlemen, you know that the very first thing I'm going to do, along with welcoming Laura Garrett to the honorary Super Towel fold, is I'm going to play the clip. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like the Call Me Hank clip, now is your moment. Now is your moment to shine. We have a new towel microphone. We are going to shine, ladies and gentlemen. Let us shine as bright as diamonds. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we will shine bright like little diamonds. And I am going to find the Call Me Hank clip. Where is it? Come on, ladies and gentlemen. The people want the Call Me Hank clip. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's coming up. I found it. Oh, ready your towels, ladies and gentlemen. Colleen Henry's going to be thrilled. It's the Call Me Hank clip. The clip the world wants to see, ladies and gentlemen. The Call Me Hank clip.
Good night.
You as well, Mr. Brennan.
Call me Hank.
Okay, sir. I will, Hank. You as well, Mr. Brennan. Okay, sir, I will, Hank. Call Me Hank clip is in the building, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, thank you, Peony and Rose. I'm just a little towel. Murder by Maester, I don't know what the tea is, but let us know what's going on. We are very interested, my little towel friend. You got the tea. We'll find out what it is. And also, I'm a towel. And we are going to go back and watch Kristen Kolokakis do get crossed, but I just have to welcome our newest honorary super towel, Laura Gorette. You say a positive word like Hank Brennan is a genius, you automatically become a super towel, honorary super towel. Now we got to jump forward a little bit to see Hank Brennan's cross of Kristen Kolokakis. So hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Hold on, I'm jumping forward in the towel stream. There might be some audio here of me yelling. No guarantee that I won't be yelling when we randomly jump back in. Sometimes I have a propensity to just start yelling. Hold on. Nope, that's David establishing a joint vent. Hold on.
And we're going to have...
Hold on.
Continue to play, please.
We need to get to Brennan. Okay, hold on. I think this is Brennan.
Hey. All right.
Hank!
Mr. Brennan?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Was your last image of Karen and John, both of them walking to the car and Karen walking to the driver's side door of that car?
Correct.
That night it was a celebratory mood?
Correct.
Everybody was getting along fine?
Yes, we were. Yes.
You were speaking to the defendant for some time?
Most of the time, correct.
And you saw her at points hugging Jen McCabe?
Correct.
You knew John?
I did.
He was a kind man?
Very kind.
Generous?
Very generous.
Thoughtful?
Very thoughtful.
Soft-spoken?
Yes.
That night was particularly different. He was extraordinarily proud and happy, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
And you could see him emote about his accomplishment that his daughter got into private school.
Correct.
Did you talk to John that night?
I did.
No further questions. Thank you.
That was great, short, to the point, and that was the end of the day, folks. So listen, there's one important thing we're going to get to watch now because we're going to skip over the technical issues. Who's excited to see the interview with John Depetro? I actually don't remember what I said, so I'm going to listen to it with you. Murder by Maester, I got to interview John Depetro. He said we were super towels. I told him he was a super towel. We're going to jump right forward to the moment that John Depetro joined us. We didn't really have tech issues. Like we got the Zoom running, but then I ended up having to have John call in on a phone call. So it was right after and we can watch the clip of Karen actually leaving court because John Depetro calls in literally right as we watch it. So hold on. Hold on.
I'm happy.
We're going to watch the John Depetro interview. I'm so excited to show this to you, little towels. We had a great day with John Depetro.
We could
Hold on, I'm going to back up a little bit.
try.
A little bit more.
I have not
A little bit more.
seen it.
One more. One more. Oh, goodness, Karen, you talk so... Why do you talk so much, Karen? This was Karen leaving court today, though, so we're going to do it. Hold on. Karen, why must you be so annoying? All right.
Coming out of court.
Hold on.
Don't worry. Ladies and
Hold
gentlemen.
on, hold on, hold on, hold on. Here we go.
Goodness.
Here we go.
No.
Hold on, hold on.
It's more just...
And John
Video
Depetro calls right after
recorded.
this. Here we go, got it.
I think the video speaks for itself. Happy, loving, affectionate.
Do you think John and Brian Higgins were at odds? We see this angle of them looking at each other.
That way.
Did you pick up on that though? I mean, you were with John all the night. Were they fighting? Did it seem like they were at each other's throats?
I was not paying attention, as you can see, if you watch the full length of the waterfall between the two trials. I was pretty much in that spot with Karina. We were there about 90 minutes.
So you didn't
in
notice
the same
that?
spot. I didn't pick up on it.
Have there been any
friendly with Karina? I have not seen been since last trial.
Are you happy tomorrow's off, or would you rather just go through?
I'm happy. We need to.
How do you feel about
get
the
work
defense's
done?
case?
When do you think
How do
you'll
feel
wrap?
about the defense's
Very,
case?
very well, solid.
When do you think you'll wrap?
Tuesday, give or take. Tuesday.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have John Depetro. John Depetro, thank you so much for calling. How are you doing?
Superior, honorary, supreme. It is an honor, and not even technical difficulties could prevent this appearance.
Oh, John, so many of the Super Towels were saying, oh, we hope John Depetro calls in, and look at it, you've done it for us. So tell me, John, we just heard Karen say she expects her case to be wrapping up on Tuesday. You saw Hank Brennan drop an absolute bombshell today with the TurtleBoy evidence coming in through Lucky. Just what is your reaction to just day after day of Hank Brennan outplaying the Reed defense?
I just don't. I fail to see how the defense has even carved in any way into the narrative that Hank Brennan has put together. And I think that's inside that courtroom. And people should understand just what a remarkable job that he has done, and how inside that courtroom, he's the attorney that's been in front of the jury more than anyone else. He has established a very clear narrative that whatever happened outside at that flagpole. And so far, I don't see anything remotely close to the defense puncturing that in any way. So I think, if anything, it's very telling. The witnesses that they're putting up now that they have a chance, I don't see any of them changing the narrative, which is firmly established with this jury, and that is that what happened outside by that flagpole. And I think they're in a lot of trouble. And if there's a way she could take the stand, I think they'd actually consider it, but that'd be a question for your mom. I'm not convinced that she can even take the stand.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I bought her boilerplate response yesterday to the question, why does your defense model jury instruction have a sentence, the defendant won't be taking the stand? I think it's because she's not going to take the stand.
Exactly, yeah. And as I was on with Julie Grant on Court TV this morning, we were talking about, and again, you would know this, but if what we're led to believe is true, and that is, the comments and the clips that we've seen of her with discussing things with David Gennady, and as you would know, if she did in fact tell David Gennady that she did in fact quote clip him and she did hit him, and she knows that, then he can't put her on the stand knowing that she would lie on the stand, because that would be the big question. So I think I mean, at this point, based on what as much as you're exactly right, she said boilerplate, I think that's actually more telling.
Yep. Now, John, the consciousness of guilt jury instruction that Hank Brennan put forth, I think a lot of people saw it coming. It's bifurcated. It's got the destruction of evidence, probably the ring videos, and which we know 17 between 12:37 a.m. and 5:08 a.m. and then one at 12:35 p.m. But what about the consciousness of guilt for witness intimidation? I was in the courtroom when John's niece testified. It was heartbreaking, but at least TurtleBoy wasn't there. You've been in the courtroom while TurtleBoy was there, while some of these moments were going down. This was a shocker today that Brennan is going to be doing this based on what TurtleBoy was writing about Lucky. What did you think of that?
I agree with you, and I was waiting to see if he was going to play clips, because there are clips, obviously, clips, it's very graphic, where the turtle is going after him and calling him by name and literally like threatening him of what he's going to do. And I think that was really a shot across the bow. What we've noticed, Hank Brennan, and I hope people are picking up on this, is all these things that he throws out, and he does it in a very subtle manner, whether it's that Officer Dever saying that she contacted the FBI because they were trying to force her on perjury, or little things. Marie Russell with the whole limo. and Alessi, and then also Officer Barrows driving to the hotel. All of those things, they catch the defense off guard. And then when Brennan threw that out with Lucky, I think it was also a really good indicator for this jury, of which he's built, and I can't stress this enough, he's built a very strong rapport with them. He's talked to them the most. They sense the way he has handled this case. They sense the way the witnesses speak to him, how the judge speaks to him. The fact that he threw that out, and then I have no idea why he is still allowed in the courtroom. I think it's an absolute. I don't understand why they would allow that. I haven't seen a lot of what he's posted, but he's like, smirking about it. He thinks this is a good thing. Anyone that watches some of the clips of how he was trying to go after him, that is intimidation. But that's how they operate. You and I know. I mean, anyone that tries to step forward, your mom with the truth, who tries to just shed some light on this in a logical way, it becomes an element of attack for them, and you put yourself on their radar. But in the end, what you have are a lot of good people that have stepped forward to try to do the right thing in the face of people that are trying to mock the system and trying to, for whatever reason, but help her get away with this. But I don't think she will.
Yeah, and I noticed a distinct change, John, between the first and second trial. I think Hank Brennan has been the big difference maker, but it also seems like that movement, the cult of personality around Karen, is simply eviscerated. It's almost gone.
Yes. Yeah.
And what I noticed, John, and what a lot of viewers, by the way, a lot of viewers want to, especially the Super Towels and Murder by Maestro and so many others, they want to let you know they have your back. But one of the questions we got earlier was, it seems like the movement, that Karen Reed clout chasing movement, is so decimated that we've now seen things like TurtleBoy trying to clout chase off you. So I want to ask you, I want to come back to the Karen implications of Aidan's witness intimidation, the consciousness of guilt. But you had a unique perspective. We had Aidan Kearney basically trying to get a rub off you from your streams.
Yes.
What was that moment like? Tell us about it.
If you step back, and there was someone very high up, I won't say who, but contacted me after that to say, if you just, and saying to me, step back, you have one person that's on court TV literally day and night. I mean, I'm on with Julie Grant in the morning, I'm on with Vinny at night, I'm streaming on Fox Nation, all of my platforms are thriving, and I've been in the courtroom more than anyone, and then you have that, and then you have someone that recognizes now he's not anywhere except someone who has a radio show just trying to hype crime. He had not been in the courtroom for weeks. He had lost control of the narrative. I know that various things, the way I would present what I saw in court, were having effect because then other people were mentioning that, and so anytime it's an annoyance, it's like a gnat or mosquitoes, right? Like mosquitoes, they don't kill us, but they are they pester us. But anytime that it does get annoying, I think of what, the witnesses, what their lives have been like, what they have gone through, how their lives have been threatened, the McCabe kids. It's so telling to me, and it's actually very grateful when the witnesses tell me, thank you so much for speaking up. I think it speaks volumes of the type of guy that Officer John O'Keefe was. And I've had the privilege of talking to Paul and obviously Peg, who's so dynamic. But the fact that on that morning in question, that Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts, they didn't hesitate. As soon as they heard he was missing, at 5 o'clock in the morning in a blizzard, they got up and immediately went to go and try to locate him. And I think, as much as that says a lot about them, I think it speaks volumes of John O'Keefe and the special relationship and friendship that he had. And they knew the importance of John to his niece, of which, And I had the honor of sitting next to you when the niece was on the stand. And people need to understand there was this, I thought, and you were inside, and that was a day for all towels worldwide as you and I sat shoulder to shoulder in unison in that. But what really people need to take away, that I think local media, and I'm going to put Ken Daniel at the top of the list, but what the local media didn't dwell on was hearing that young girl who lost her parents. And, you know, it's going to be hard with, this is your uncle, and he's agreed to move in and take care of, be legal guardians to her and her brother. And just, she was 12 years old. And at that age, I mean, I have 2 daughters, I have 4 sisters. So it's, you know, that's a time when a girl is going through the developmental stage. That's such like an important time for girls, young girls becoming women and their moms. And you have this woman, and to hear her say at age 12 that Karen would give her the cold shoulder, that Karen favored her brother, like that I just found that so repulsive. That Karen Reed, it just, you know what it was though? And I've heard this from friends of John, Karen was jealous of the relationship that John had with his niece. And in a short amount of time, they had forged a very strong relationship. And, you know, few of us, I don't know how many people would even be in that situation where, you know, you're going to do the best you can, not just for your parents who are now deceased, but for your uncle who stepped in to take care of you. And the fact that Karen Reed would give her the cold shoulder, ignore her, she was jealous of the relationship she had with John. She knew that Karen favored her brother. It's just so cruel to do to a young child in such a vulnerable position. To me, it just shows that, you know, Karen Reed just is so morally bankrupt. And, you know, despite the fact that she went and killed her uncle, but just putting, you would think that would, you know, be a situation that you would want to do everything you can to nurture a young person who would just the unimaginable grief of losing both parents. But this whole element of them favoring one over the other, it's just so abhorrent.
It is, John, and you know, people are going to naturally want me to ask you. We were both shoulder to shoulder. We saw the jury's reaction. I want to give you a chance to tell these folks, these listeners, what the jury is like when they're reacting. I saw it. I saw the disdain for Karen. I saw this barreling towards conviction weeks ago. Tell us about it, because so many people, I think, don't realize that jury is young. It seems like they were screened to make sure no one had any bias, and they really don't like Karen.
Right. Oh, I completely agree. And people need to understand, towels all over. People need to understand that in that courtroom, there'd be no reason to like Karen. I mean, they don't hear her talk, and she's on these clips talking about drinking. She's on these clips mocking Peg O'Keefe. She's basically making almost confessions of, you know, I probably said I hit him, but not as many times as they say, and that I have clipped him, and then they've heard those voicemails, of which is the behavior of someone unhinged. They saw the police dash cam video. They saw where she's, you know, John, Karen, like, you know, rolling around, and they see Jen McCabe and Kerry Roberts, of which basically the niece reinforced the testimony that they had given, and I liked how the niece even said Jen McCabe was pretty even keeled that day. But there's a narrative, false narrative, put out there that this jury like loves Karen Reed because she's this person taking photos and selfies outside of the courthouse. But I'm looking for a reason. If I'm inside this morning, that woman that was at the waterfall who was so busy talking with Karen, I think that's the first positive witness we've heard about her. I've covered trials where, you know, the kids of the defendants sit behind them. I've covered trials where the spouse is sitting behind them. I've covered trials where all the coworkers were sitting behind the person. The people behind Karen Reed, as I described it to someone, they look like a casino crowd. They look like the type of people you'd see, the way they dress. It's always different faces. And the O'Keefes the O'Keefes look like normal people. The O'Keefes are very solemn. The O'Keefes all kind of sit exactly the same spot. I think the niece, the people absorbed how powerful that was. And the thing about the niece that people need to understand is, it's one thing that his mother lost a son, and it's another thing that, Mike Camerano lost a friend. But the niece and nephew, they were depending on him. Their life was turned upside down because of what? Because she, was an alcohol-fueled rage and backed up the car and went forward first and then backed it up. And I think, because people ask me what's the biggest difference, I think Hank Brennan has really drilled down that this, and I'm so tired of seeing people say it was an accident. They're not absorbing what happened. She went forward to give herself more runway. It'd be like, instead of just like slapping someone when your hand is like, inches from their face, like you winding it back. She went forward so she could really rev her car. That's not an accident. An accident is not going 24 miles an hour in reverse. What I believe is in that courtroom, the people need to understand, is he got out of that vehicle, and then she went forward and back, and then his phone stopped moving. There's no way to dispute that. This is not about, it's not about dog bites. And then he was found in a debris field filled with taillight. For people that are really paying attention, the truth is out there. For the delusional conspiracy crowd, it doesn't matter. They're not even looking for the truth.
Yeah, and John, tell me that bring us basically to yesterday, that motion for a mistrial by Alessi, he lost, obviously. Yeah. It screamed to me not just desperation, but they know that this jury's going to convict. It's just a question of on what charge, not necessarily will they convict. Do you agree?
Right. Oh, yeah. And if you really look at that, you're great. I want everyone watching to understand your dedication, the way you sum things up, your knowledge of the law. It's an invaluable asset for those that are trying to follow the trial. I love when you sum things up, but if you notice, Jackson is whispering to Alessi before he speaks. Bob Alessi, by the way, I've talked to all the attorneys in there. This is nothing against him personally, but I kind of view him, he's almost like an errand boy. He does the stuff that Jackson and Eddie don't want to do, but they need someone to do it. And so I don't know what that was, the outburst, the temper tantrum. It's too bad the jury didn't get to see that, because that would have been even more effective if the jury could have seen that. But to me, that speaks volumes of just how poorly it's going. Is they actually wanted to take a shot, as much as it was a long shot, at trying to get the whole thing kicked. You notice you didn't see that last year. You don't do that if you think it's going well. You do that when you see the writing on the wall. These guys, they're not, they may be a lot of things. Alan Jackson may be a lot of things. He's not a stupid guy. And I want people that are watching, towels everywhere, to understand. They knew what it felt like last spring when they were at times winning. When they've had cases where they get a client off, they know what that feels like. This doesn't feel like that. They know what it would have taken to get her cleared, and they see that it's not happening.
I agree with you absolutely, and I've been trying to tell the towel viewers, and I think people are getting it. There's a lot of noise, but you can tell from the defense's actions that they're tactically off kilter. They're playing defense, not offense, and Hank Brennan has a command of the courtroom. When you go into that courtroom, John, that is his courtroom, and you can tell from the second you step in there. Are the jurors following him when he talks compared to the defense? Are the jurors on Hank Brennan's every word?
They are, and he's built a strong rapport with them. Notice the judge has never told him once he was going to speak up, raise his voice, nothing like that. he is so sharp. He gets what he needs. He knows what he's looking for. He knows what he's looking for. He knows what he's looking to get. He pulls it, and then he exits. And then he does little things to throw the defense off. Like, I love that yesterday when he said, like, over here, because as you posted brilliantly, Barros was looking at the defense for guidance of, like, what am I supposed to do? We didn't rehearse. He was going to ask me about the hotel. I also would be curious, with all the clips you pull, I think Alan Jackson has some, I do, and I know I don't want to sound crazy, but I think he's got some hand signal. You notice he very quickly always puts his hand over his left eye. He brushes above his left eye. And I almost think it's like a third base coach or a first base coach in baseball where they're giving the signal that you're going to bunt or steal. He does that. And I think it's almost, I wouldn't be surprised, I should say. I don't know if it's true, but it's just odd. With witnesses up there that get in trouble, you see him, he puts his hand, his left hand goes over his left brow. And it's almost as if he's saying, like, stick to exactly what we had rehearsed. So I liked when Hank Brennan threw that in. I liked when Hank Brennan got Marie Russell talking about Alessi and the limo, and that Alessi actually wrote the report. I think it really shows and impacts the jury that look at the difference. I'm glad you asked that. And if you don't mind, what has not been covered effectively by the Boston media is the impact Dr. Wolf, the neurosurgeon of Miami, Supreme Trial will grant, Dr. Wolf, he's not the best witness of the trial. He's the best witness I've ever seen. Those jurors, in 10 years from now, if they were at Logan and they saw him, they'd go up to him and be like, I remember you. You were the brain surgeon. We don't hear brain surgeons that all the time. That was a unique experience. He was so phenomenal and so personal, and that he is such a gifted individual, Dr. Wolf. And he was there for Hank Brennan. He was there for the family. And he talked about, we've seen John O'Keefe's phone, we've seen his clothes, but he talked about his brain. And he talked about the damage to the brain, and he talked about how sensitive the brain is, that, you could put your finger through a brain like watermelon. He talked about death. He talked about it in a manner that only a doctor can talk about, and it was so impactful. And the jury was in awe of this guy. And I think you're going to stand back and, is this guy going to do and testify this way? But he was testifying for the prosecution. He was in such a rapport with Hank Brennan. It was just extraordinary. And then when Hank Brennan followed up with Dr. Welcher, he wasn't using a crash test dummy. He was the guy. That blue paint, I'm telling you, 20 years from now, if anyone in that jury hears about blue paint, that's what they're thinking about. People don't realize that this is Nuttall seems like a lifetime ago. Nuttall, we're going to go next week's 8 weeks. Nuttall seems so long ago to this jury. They're going to remember the blue paint. They're going to remember the slow motion of Dr. Welcher. That was so well done. Welcher, who has a PhD, he didn't say it's on my office. He didn't say here's two guys in Mexico. He did it. And dressing as John O'Keefe. I was in the courtroom. The jurors, you felt like you were watching video of what happened to John O'Keefe. And I also want to touch on this false narrative that some Karen Reed people are saying, we need to see it in full speed and blah, blah, blah. I push back on that. We're not accustomed to that because in our worlds, especially American, our technology, watch any sporting event, we're accustomed to the instant replay. We're accustomed to the slow motion. And we know that when something happens in slow motion, that is official, that's a better reflection of what happened, not less of a reflection of what happened. And so I think that was a really powerful moment when he did it. And I don't think they need to demonstrate, that the vehicle's going. The fact that they just did the slow, low, whatever it was, 5 miles an hour, 2 miles an hour of him in slow motion with the arm in the paint, it was, wow, that really broke through. That rattled the courtroom. And I'll say this, I just haven't seen the defense, this vigorous defense that Karen promised. I just haven't seen them even puncture anything that Hank Brennan put on.
Well, it does. You bring up so many points, John. It's a whirlwind of excellent points. I love talking to you. First, how fascinating was it to watch Bob Alessi try to get up there and almost learn how to do his first ever criminal defense cross by asking Dr. Wolf, what do you do in the morning? And then Wolf humanized himself with the cappuccino story. Second,
Yes.
a very similar thing happened today. You were talking about Alan Jackson and his cueing. Well, it was almost like Hank Brennan expected Alan Jackson to be coaching Lucky, and Brennan got Lucky to answer that question, that foundational evidentiary question about whether Lucky's family and friends had shown him the TurtleBoy report so Brennan could get into evidence. Jackson couldn't stop it. I noticed it happened very fast, and that goes to your point. And then the point that you closed with, which is this trial seems to be Hank Brennan not just like putting on a case, but putting on an exhibition in advanced trial strategy, and it's almost like this defense isn't suited to counter it. Did Karen run out of money? Did Alan Jackson and David Unetti never run up against a lawyer like Hank Brennan before? What is going on?
You know, a couple things, and these are, I've learned so much by being in the courthouse and talking to various people, and just, Brennan, he was very successful with a lot of pretrial motions. He understood what was on the line. I would also argue, you know, I was there at the hearing when Brennan wanted to get access to the raw footage of the docuseries. And I was in a unique situation. Let's just say I heard the defense actually saying it's 150 hours, and if he wants to go through 150 hours, like, be our guest. But what they underestimated was, because I talked to a friend of mine who's a tech, and he said, you know, they don't understand. Today with AI, you don't have to look through 150 hours. With AI, you could just program it to you just want the clips of Karen. And the clips of Karen were probably more like 10 to 12 hours. So I think, especially Jackson, he knows when it's winnable. He knows when it's going his way. He you know, I don't think he kids himself. I don't think he'd be successful if he did. I think they realize this time around. I'm willing to bet, you know, they haven't faced anyone like Hank Brennan in a long time. But I think Hank Brennan knew that a lot of this case was actually maybe going to be won with some of the pretrial hearings and not stuff inside the courtroom. And because he took that approach, and because he streamlined it, that's why it's just such a different case. And unless you're there as you were, and he has a different presence. And I'll say this, you know, the jurors, no one's left. They're all there. What people have to ask themselves is, at the end of the day, are they going to let Hank Brennan down, the jury? He's been with them every step of the way. He is professional. He is courteous. He's well-spoken. He makes his points effectively. He doesn't talk down to them. He's not slippery. I right now, I find it very hard to believe they're going to let him down. And I also take issue with, I hear people, it only takes one. It only needs one juror to, I take exception to that. I've interviewed people who've been on juries, and they tell me as soon as it went 10-2 and there were only two of them, and I talked to this guy, he was one of the two. He's like, oh, forget this. Because then he talked to the woman that was also a holdout, and she said, oh, forget it. If it's 10-2, forget it. I'll go along. And then now it's 11-1, and he's like, listen, I'm not going up against these 11 people. So I think majority wins out here. And I think right now the defense is really scrambling to come up with something to stop this. It's a game of momentum. And the momentum right now is just riding so strongly with the prosecution in common law.
I couldn't agree with you more. And John, tell me, one of the other things that defined this retrial was the close of the federal probe. It seemed to me, and I think you and I are uniquely positioned to discuss this, that this was a proxy war until the DOJ changed over and the new administration came in, and then Karen, Alan, and David lost their allies in the Boston DOJ, and Hank Brennan gained some allies. Am I wrong about that?
No, you're right. And it's also interesting. Last spring, they had a skip in their step going into the courthouse. And, certain members of the media always wanted to tell other members of the media, well, there's a federal probe going on. Who knows what's going on? And, Jackson, Yannetti, they took pride in the fact that, there's a federal probe and there's something going on. And, I also haven't heard anyone mention that a lot of the Karen Reed supporters, for whatever reason, but a lot of them are actually Trump supporters. And there was even this running false narrative that Trump was aware of the case and he was going to, I know it sounds preposterous, but he was going to step in and help her out if he won and blah, blah, blah. And the first thing that happens is the new Trump U.S. attorney in mass comes in, and the first thing she does is there's no indictments and the investigation's over. So I think that also plays to, kind of taking the wind out of the sails. I think they used that as leverage. They used it as leverage with Lally. They used it as leverage with the judge. They had a certain confidence about them, and even arrogance, I'd say, in mentioning this other proceeding that was going on. And it did have people wondering, is there something going on? And I'm not even talking about the lunacy that people are saying at any moment the FBI was going to surround the courthouse and start arresting all the witnesses. We know that never happened. But the legs being taken out, I think right now, if we had truth serum, Alan Jackson knows their best shot was last spring with Lally, that everything broke their way from, the Commonwealth presented the case the wrong way. They were almost playing defense. There was no buffer zone. Those people were everywhere. There was just a lot of chaos. The Commonwealth kind of underestimated what they were dealing with. I think now they yearn for those. Remember what it was like, and the hi-fi, and the people dancing with the pom-poms and walking her up to the steps. And Alan Jackson, he would do a walking press conference on the way to the courthouse. Then he controlled the courtroom. Make no mistake about it. Adam Lally is a really nice guy, and I have a lot of respect for him, and I think the world of him. But Alan Jackson was the superior attorney, and he doesn't have it this time. He's not what I was trying to figure out who's the king of the court. And Hank Brennan, Alan Jackson must be telling people, I haven't run into anybody like this in a long time. Because you don't run into anybody like this that often.
Well, and Hank Brennan was sneaky because he was always in federal court, and so I can see how he snuck up on Alan Jackson. Sorry, to your point, John. I could see it.
Yeah, and that's thrown them, and they underestimated the use of those clips. They underestimated, I think, some of the damaging things she said, because I'm pretty sure that they had final say over anything that was going to air, but they weren't thinking, what about the footage that they didn't use? And they didn't think that the people that made the docuseries, maybe they thought they wouldn't hand it over. Maybe they didn't realize the extent of the damage of things that Karen said. But getting back to Alessi, and I do like him, Your Honor, and he's so long-winded. And he is having the time of his life. If there's anyone enjoying it, it's Bob Alessi. He's never been involved with anything like this. He's never been given so much latitude. I like when he asks the question and the witness says, well, of course. And then he says, exactly. as if that's where he wanted them to go. Bob Alessi, as good as he is, as I've told people, I was telling someone last night, this guy, you ask him what time it is, and he starts explaining how to build a clock. If he can give you a 20-minute explanation instead of a 1-minute explanation, he'll always opt for the 20-minute. But here's what I see when I would sit there 6 weeks in that courtroom with the jury. They'd tune him out. they would tune them out. If they had cell phones, they'd go on their phone. They can't go on their phone because they don't have phones with them. But they would zone out. And never mind, sometimes he's doing it with the lights down. I mean, it's just, they get tired. And the jury right now, I think the judge is smart to give them tomorrow off because they're tired. This is a lot. I've talked to people on jurors, and I actually have to go in a minute, but I've talked to people on juries that, they've told me that their normal job wasn't as intense as jury duty was. Like jury duty, they had to be on their game. This is, there's note taking, you got to pay attention at all times. Not everyone has jobs like that. Not everyone has careers like that. The jury, I believe, is going home exhausted. And therefore, I want to point out one more quick thing. The longer this goes on, the more things like the blue paint, the more like the Karen clips stand out because it drags on. The other thing I want to point out that I haven't heard anyone else say, but maybe you have, but every time every time they have a witness they're allowing him to get up, he's actually strengthening his case with the Commonwealth. So as much as some people want him to put on Brian Higgins, Brian Albert, Proctor, blah, 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 Hank's getting bigger. He's getting stronger. He's not getting weaker. He's showing a different versatility that he has to the jury. He's showcasing his skills and talents with the jury. Unless they have a rabbit to pull out of their hat, I think they're in a lot of trouble right now.
Oh, yeah. You nailed it, John. Every witness the defense puts on becomes a piece of Hank Brennan's case. And also, yes. I noticed your point with Bob Alessi, spot on. Alessi, after 5 weeks, he finally lost it with one of the witnesses and said, Your Honor, he's pointing at my hands. Literally every single analyst, I'm sure the jury was like, oh, this man is not a serious lawyer. But yes, John Depetro, I think people were saying throughout the comments in the chat, you are appreciated. You are an excellent analyst. You're an excellent reporter.
I am honored to be a towel. I want people to know I come across a lot of content. Your content is original. It is brilliant. It's insightful, but it's entertaining. It's hilarious. You have a brilliant legal mind. You have an entertainment value to you that is unmatched, and you just have so many fans. And thank you so much. It was a privilege being on.
Of course, John, you are a busy man. Enjoy the rest of your day. People can find you at John Depetro Show on Twitter, and I'm going to work on the phonetic pronunciation of your name. I'm from Massachusetts. What can I do?
It's fine. It's fine. Thank you very much, Supreme Towel.
All right, be well, John. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Well, Towel friends, wasn't that great? What an interview with John Depetro. So the day was just wild, ladies and gentlemen. Just a wild day with the Karen Reed and John O'Keefe retrial. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, we don't need to watch Karen Reed walking out of court. Oh, no, my dear friends. There is only one thing that the Towel friends want to watch when we're done with the recap, before we close the recap and I go talk to the Towel friends. Colleen Henry, get in here. It's your favorite moment of the day. It's our favorite moment of the day. Oh, Linda A., you're so kind. Ladies and gentlemen, Joe O'Keefe, you're going to have quite a day. Oh, it's your favorite moment, Colleen.
Good night.
You as well, Mr. Brennan.
Call me Hank.
Okay, sir, I will, Hank. One more time.
Good night.
You as well, Mr. Brennan.
Call me Hank.
Okay, sir, I will, Hank. I can't help it. One more time.
Good night.
You as well, Mr. Brennan.
Call me Hank.
Okay, sir, I will, Hank. I love that clip. So hold on, we're gonna finish the recap in a second, but we have a very important question from the Super Towel Cinnamon Bun, and I would be remiss if I did not answer this question. So I think I said one time in an interview that people believed Karen Reed was innocent and then started making money, and then now people make money so they believe Karen Reed is innocent. The media apparatus would not get attention on this case. So I think people pay a lot of attention to Towel Stream because Towel was one of the only people who put together the pretextual federal probe, the Sandra Birchmore thing, the sort of the PR apparatus surrounding Karen, and I'm not tooting my own horn, but like there's numbers following this content in this stream because of that. Like it's not like the narrative. I guess the narrative that I was putting together was very explosive, but it's not like there's a lot of to it from a conventional lay media perspective. If you were just saying, listen, this woman crashed her car into her boyfriend while drunk and left him to die on the lawn, and then she became really politically connected and tried to cover it up, like, yes, that's a story, but it's like a Politico story. It's not a mainstream media story. A mainstream media story is it was Man Bear Pig and Chewbacca and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man with the candlestick in some kind of a kitchen, and the dog involved. Chewbacca's not actually Chewbacca. Chewbacca is a dog, and the dog has anti-gravitational propulsion technology and also is a non-DNA based entity. Do you see what I mean? That sells. It's ridiculous, but it sells. Oh, Eva, you're so kind. But that's the answer. That's why the mainstream media will sell this narrative of the horse race. If you have, what is it? Let's think Ronald Reagan versus Michael Dukakis in, 80 or 84? If you just have a landslide Republican victory, you're not, like, the media is not going to really get a lot of coverage. So you cover that as if it were a horse race until the very end, even if you know it's going to be a blowout. It's similar to this. You cover it like it's a horse race till the very end if you're the mainstream media, because that's what's going to get you attention. Now, you might say, but Tal, that's literally paradoxical because a lot of people listen to you and you don't do that. Well, yes, but I gave that preemptive caveat to say that this is a very random exception to that general rule. Yes, this stream is bigger than Boston 25. Yes, apparently right now this stream is, 27 times bigger than the Glare stream on X, although he definitely has more fans on YouTube, which is good for Will. I would shake Will's hand again. I've interviewed Will. Maybe, you know what? I've interviewed Will. Will's interviewed me on his channel. Maybe Will will call in. Will's going to be like, oh no. But yes, Will can call into Towel Channel, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine me interviewing the Glarer. That would be hilarious. I'd be like, Will, do you like Jesus? And he'd be like, yes, Grant, I like Jesus. And I'd be like, well, I think we can agree on that, Will. Everybody likes Jesus. Except for TurtleBoy, who claims to like Jesus, but said that Jesus told him to seek revenge. I don't think Jesus works that way. I can't speak for everyone. I don't know what Jesus happens to tell people in their hearts, but I don't think that outside of chasing the money changers out of the temple, which, by the way, was at the very, very end of the Bible, and it's actually, did you know, ladies and gentlemen, while we get ready to end the recap, did you know the reason why Jesus was taken out was because he chased the money changers from the temple? That was literally the thing that resulted in the magistrates of Jerusalem bringing him before them. It's what got him in trouble. It wasn't just, you know how the story is that Pontius Pilate betrayed him to the Romans? Well, what do you think he betrayed him to the Romans about? Yeah, Will the Glare. We don't agree on the case, obviously, or any of some of the stuff he said, and he doesn't agree with some of the things I've said, but he likes Jesus, and so we can talk about that. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, did you know that what Pontius Pilate betrayed Jesus to the Romans about was Jesus went into the temple, he went into Jerusalem. I have this distinct memory of a passage in the Bible where Jesus is walking into Jerusalem for the last time, and he meets these people on the outskirts of Jerusalem, and he's like, can you get me a goat? And they're like, why do you want a goat? And he's like, because I need to ride it into Jerusalem. And they're like, isn't that stealing? And he's like, no, I'm borrowing the goat. But anyway, I'm telling a parable here, ladies and gentlemen. So Jesus goes into Jerusalem for the last time, and the last thing he does is he storms into the temple because he's so upset that people are changing money there, and it's just this place of just really bad sin. So he flips over the tables and he causes all this chaos, and he says, get out of the temple. That's why they want to arrest him. That's what the magistrates of Jerusalem are looking for him for doing. And so as a result of him flipping over the tables, oh dear God. As a result of him flipping over the tables, oh dear God. They persecute him, and that's Pontius Pilate betrays him to the Romans over that. So, Yeah, no, you're right. No, Murder by Maestro, you are right. Then it's the Garden of Peace, I want to say. It's like a peace garden, the Garden of Gethsemane. I know what you're talking about. I've seen video of inside that garden. No, don't get me wrong. That garden is very, 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 very crucial. And what happens in that garden is very, very crucial to the story. And I'm not saying that the incident in the temple is the final. In fact, I'd call it the penultimate incident, because obviously Jesus isn't captured right away because Pilate has to betray him. But we're getting a little bit astray from the trial here, ladies and gentlemen. My point was just that I could talk to Will the Glairer, and then I started talking about Jesus. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, I don't think Karen's getting much support here. As much as liberals in Massachusetts might be known as kind of like anti-police, they're really not. The institution itself is more moderate Democrat, and they support the police. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that was a wild day in the John O'Keefe and Karen Reed retrial. We are just finishing up the recap. We started the recap at 3:46 p.m. It is now 6:06 p.m. So that means we did our recap for 3:46, over 2 hours, ladies and gentlemen. That was outrageous. So let me say thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. There's no court tomorrow in the John O'Keefe and Karen Reed retrial, but you can catch a special catch-up stream. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start probably, I'd say, sometime